Imagine a force so powerful that it can level cities in an instant. This is the reality of a nuclear missile detonation. When a nuclear missile is detonated, it unleashes an event of such magnitude that it's difficult to truly comprehend. The immediate impact is nothing short of catastrophic. The initial blast results in a devastating explosion that sends shockwaves radiating outward at supersonic speeds. These shockwaves, coupled with the intense heat of the explosion, can level buildings, rip trees from the ground and hurl heavy vehicles like toys. The destructive force of these shockwaves is so intense that it can annihilate entire cities, reducing once bustling metropolises to rubble in mere moments. But the destruction isn't limited to the physical landscape. The human toll is equally, if not more, devastating. The intense heat of the explosion can cause severe burns to those in its immediate vicinity, while the shockwaves can cause fatal injuries. The sheer scale of loss of life is staggering, with the death toll in the immediate aftermath often reaching into the hundreds of thousands. And the devastation doesn't stop there. The explosion also sends a fireball rising into the sky, creating a mushroom cloud that can be seen for miles around. This fireball emits intense radiation that can be lethal to anyone in its path. In the short term, the destructive force of nuclear missiles leaves cities in ruins, causing immense loss of life and rendering vast areas uninhabitable. The landscape becomes a desolate wasteland, a stark reminder of the immense power that has been unleashed. In the blink of an eye, everything within the blast radius of a nuclear missile is obliterated. The unleashing of this unprecedented power marks one of the darkest moments in human history, a testament to the devastating potential of human ingenuity when used for destructive purposes. It's a sobering reminder of the cost of warfare, and the dire consequences that can result when the power of the atom is harnessed for harm, rather than for good. The initial blast is only the beginning of the tragedy that unfolds in the wake of a nuclear strike. When a nuclear missile detonates, the immediate human toll is staggering. In the blink of an eye, lives are lost, and the landscape is irreversibly altered. Those within the blast radius suffer fatal injuries, their lives snuffed out in an instant. It's a horrifying spectacle, one that underscores the destructive power of nuclear weapons. But the horror doesn't end there. Those fortunate, or perhaps unfortunate enough to survive the initial explosion face a litany of severe injuries. The intense heat of the blast inflicts horrific burns, melting skin and searing flesh. The shockwave too wreaks havoc, causing injuries as it flattens buildings and hurls debris through the air. Then comes the radiation. Invisible, insidious, it permeates the air, seeping into the bodies of those in its path. This radiation sickness, marked by nausea, weakness, and a rapid decline in health, is a slow, painful death sentence for many survivors. The trauma, both physical and psychological, is profound. Survivors are left to grapple with the loss of loved ones, the destruction of their homes, and the uncertainty of their own futures. The psychological scars, for many, are as debilitating as the physical ones. In the wake of such devastation, medical resources are quickly overwhelmed. Hospitals, if they're still standing, are inundated with injured survivors. Doctors and nurses work tirelessly, doing what they can with limited resources and against insurmountable odds. But the sheer scale of casualties is often too great, and for many, help arrives too late. In the immediate aftermath of a nuclear strike, human suffering is immense, and medical resources are stretched to the breaking point. It's a grim reality, one that underscores the urgent need for nuclear disarmament and the prevention of nuclear warfare. For in the face of such devastation, we're reminded of a sobering truth. The cost of a nuclear strike is measured not in dollars or political gains but in human lives lost and forever altered. The fallout from a nuclear strike extends far beyond the immediate devastation. After the initial blast, an insidious enemy emerges: radioactive fallout. This is the residual radioactive material that propels into the atmosphere following a nuclear blast. It's invisible, it's silent, but its effects are far from harmless. The environment bears a significant brunt of this fallout. The radioactive particles contaminate the air, making it hazardous to breathe. They seep into the water systems, poisoning our rivers, lakes, and oceans. Even the soil isn't spared. The particles settle into the ground, rendering vast areas of land barren and inhospitable. This environmental contamination lasts for decades, transforming once thriving ecosystems into nuclear wastelands. But the fallout's impact doesn't end with the environment. It poses a serious, long-term threat to human health. As these radioactive particles enter our bodies, through the air we breathe or the food we eat, they can cause significant damage. They can alter our DNA, leading to genetic mutations that can be passed on to future generations. This means that the effects of a single nuclear strike can linger in our gene pool, affecting people who weren't even born at the time of the event. The fallout also increases the risk of various forms of cancer. In particular, thyroid cancer rates tend to skyrocket in areas exposed to nuclear fallout, largely due to the absorption of radioactive iodine. Leukemia, breast cancer, lung cancer, and several other types of cancer have also been linked to exposure to nuclear radiation. In addition to physical health effects, the psychological trauma experienced by survivors and their descendants is a significant aspect of nuclear fallout. Living with the constant fear of potential health issues and witnessing the suffering of loved ones can lead to a range of mental health problems, including anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. The legacy of a nuclear strike persists for decades, with survivors and future generations bearing the brunt of the long-term health impacts. It's a sobering reminder of the profound and enduring consequences of nuclear warfare, which extend far beyond the initial moment of detonation. The dawn of the nuclear age marked a turning point in human history. In the mid-20th century, the world bore witness to a power unlike any it had seen before. A power that would forever change the landscape of warfare and diplomacy. In the throes of World War II, a clandestine scientific endeavor known as the Manhattan Project was underway. A team of brilliant minds, led by the theoretical physicist Robert Oppenheimer, labored tirelessly in secret laboratories scattered across the United States. Their mission was driven by a grim urgency: to develop an atomic bomb before the Axis powers. In 1945, their efforts culminated in the detonation of the first nuclear device in a remote desert of New Mexico. Codenamed Trinity, this test marked the birth of the nuclear age. But the world would not know about this development until a few weeks later. In August of the same year, the world woke up to the horrifying reality of nuclear warfare. The United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The devastation was unimaginable. Tens of thousands of lives were lost instantly, and the cities were reduced to rubble. These bombings marked the only instances of nuclear weapons used in warfare, but their impact was far-reaching. They brought World War II to a swift end, but at a tremendous human cost. In the aftermath, nations grappled with the ethical implications of this new form of warfare. The introduction of nuclear weapons ushered in an era of nuclear deterrence. The threat of mutual destruction became a cornerstone of international relations. Nations raced to amass nuclear arsenals, not with the intention to use them, but to dissuade others from attacking. The introduction of nuclear weapons forever altered the course of human history. The world had witnessed the devastating power of the atom, and there was no going back. The nuclear age had dawned, casting a long, ominous shadow over the future of humanity. The Cold War escalated the nuclear arms race to unprecedented levels. As the ideological divide deepened between the United States and the Soviet Union, so too did their competition to amass nuclear firepower. The world watched with bated breath as these superpowers stockpiled arsenals of intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, each capable of delivering multiple nuclear warheads across vast distances. The Cold War was not just a battle for ideological supremacy but a high-stakes game of nuclear brinkmanship. The concept of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, became a chilling reality, with the understanding that any nuclear strike would inevitably lead to a retaliatory attack, resulting in total annihilation of both sides. This precarious balance of power, held in check by the terrifying prospect of global nuclear war, defined international relations during the Cold War era. The Cold War era was defined by a precarious balance of nuclear power. The threat of nuclear missiles is a stark reminder of our collective responsibility to safeguard our future. Despite the end of the Cold War, the specter of nuclear warfare looms large, casting a long shadow over our world. The number of countries with nuclear capabilities has grown, and with it, the risk of proliferation. The world has experienced the horrors of nuclear warfare, and the long-lasting devastation it wreaks on humanity and our environment. It's a chapter of our history we must never repeat. The path to a future free from this threat lies in global cooperation. Countries around the world must unite to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons, to promote disarmament, and to ensure stringent safeguards against their use. This is not a responsibility that any one nation can shoulder alone. It is a collective endeavor, a shared commitment to our shared future. The devastating impacts of nuclear missiles underline the urgent need for global cooperation to secure a future free from the threat of nuclear warfare.